What should you do if you are quote unquote skinny fat? This is one of the widest questions asked across YouTube in the fitness space. And I'm just going to tell you this is what I do. Here's an example result of how I've transformed a client. This was 16 weeks of work. But for context, I've done this on a few occasions. If you were to look objectively at all the results, you could say this guy may come into the category, this guy maybe, this guy maybe, this guy, and maybe this guy. I'm also going to put skinny fat and also like just soft midsection with not that much muscle, because that's probably quite relatable as well. Like you've got outright skinny fat where like the guy is just fat but skinny, and then you've got what's probably more realistic to the majority of people watching, where you're like anywhere from 15 to 20% body fat, but also not that much muscle tissue either. Like maybe even you look something like this. But just know, like if you are within this range, it's not a long process. It's actually a fairly quick fix and a fairly simple one. For context of weeks, so 14, 9, 12, 12, 16, 14, 10, 12, 11, 8. So it's not a massive, on average we're looking at 12 weeks, basically. That's what we're looking at, and that's what we're going to give you in this video. If you don't know me, by the way, my name's Tom Sergey. I run the Gorilla Platoon, which is an online physique transformation program where we get results like this and basically fix, like this is our bread and butter really, body recomposition, stripping off your fat and building some tissue along the way. That is the main thing that we do here. So that's probably why I'm quite credible to talk about it. But you'll know by the end of this video and you can determine. And if you think I deliver value, subscribe. And if you don't, then don't. And that's fair enough. So we're going to speak about what to do if you are quote unquote skinny fat. Now, the reason I like to speak about this one is because it's not black and white. When you look at someone's physique like that, you're thinking, needs to build muscle, but also carrying a lot more body fat than necessary. So bulk, should we bulk or should we cut? I mean, if we just cut what we cutting away from, but also if we bulk, I mean, let's play this out. You look like this, you're best part of 20%, 19, 18% body fat. You bulk from 18% body fat, trying to gain 1 to 2 kilos per month, because that's a steady rate in a gaining phase. And knowing you're going to accumulate a little bit of body fat along the way, how long is it going to be until you're 25% body fat? If you're 25% body fat, you're going to look something like this, and then you're going to end up around 30, just outright fat. I mean, 25, dare I say, is pretty much outright fat. So realistically, how long are you going to be able to bulk for? Because bear in mind, you go to the gym to feel and look better. So if you're going to the gym to feel and looking better, but you're getting fatter and fatter and fatter because you need to build muscle, you're gonna run out of like body fat until you just don't like yourself. You're gonna look in the mirror and think, I'm a fat piece of shit. I look like garbage. People are thinking I'm fat. And you won't have had enough time to build any true, real muscle. So you won't look any better at all. And the muscle you do have will just be continuously getting smoothed over week on week. And that'll just be more nails in the notional coffin to your bulk. So I don't think bulking is the answer. Maybe you will or won't agree. Maybe you do have the mental bandwidth and you don't care what people think about you. But let's be honest, this is a visual game and you kind of do. So let's just address that. But then if we were to go into an aggressive cut and we need to build muscle, we're not giving ourselves a good space to actually, drive performance in the gym. And let's be honest, like you can eat all the protein you want. You can eat the best diet you want. You can put the best fuel inside the car. If you don't fucking train really fucking hard, the muscle has no reason to grow. It has no reason to even stay on your bones if you don't train like a fucking animal. The amount of muscle you carry is a direct reflection of how much stimulus you put on it on a day-to-day. The people with the most physiques have just put more stimulus on it over a period of time and continue to expand and develop that. And that's why they have the amount of muscle, because their body knows that this motherfucker's brain is going to put a lot of stimulus and stress on the body, and the body doesn't like to be away from what's known as homeostasis, which is essentially, if homeostasis is this line, when you train, you go away from it, and you're in what's known as the alarm phase. The body doesn't like to be in this, so it will resist. It will go into the resistance phase, and the body's clever. It doesn't want to be just back to normal. It goes into super compensation, and then it will taper back off. And then that way, your body will get a little bit stronger. And this is the art of what you're doing in each session and over the training cycle as well. If you, just as a little bit of education, if you then go into the session without letting it recover, this is what will happen. You'll go alarm, resistance, but won't quite meet the homeostasis line, train again, same again, and you'll just end up like, well, this is how overtraining and overreaching comes in. What you want to happen is this. You dip back down and you come up here, and then you dip back down, and I'm going to run out of room, but you end up here. What the real goal is to move up your line of homeostasis, your ability to take on stress and stimulus to the body. That's the main reason why people train in general. Like if you wanted to just be fitter and stronger, it's the main reason why people do that. So with that, going back to my point, you need to fucking train hard. So if we put you in a deep cut, we're not going to be able to achieve that. So what is the answer? Well, we're going to speak about what phase one is first. Now, as I've said, we know you're anywhere around, like, let's say you're 18% body fat and you're 75 kilos. At this point, we understand. Surplus is not really an option. Deep cut is not an option. Okay, so what can we do here? Well, what you can do at this point, and where this becomes most powerful, is because motherfuckers, honestly, have trashed their metabolism. They've eaten shit food. They've probably tried to do a lot of activity. So the quality of nutrients is not in there, and then they're burning the candle at both ends. So if you get someone and just sit them just below maintenance and get them to train hard, you're essentially kick-starting, from what I've seen, the metabolism. But because you're in just below a deficit, just below maintenance, so you're in a little bit of a deficit, you're technically still not eating enough food, but you're eating fucking plenty in order to still be driving performance in the gym. You want to rinse this out for anywhere from a 6 to an 8 week period, depending on the amount of muscle you're already starting with and how fat you are. You can expect that you will not really shed that much weight and body fat in that initial phase. You will shed a little bit. Like what would take you 1 week in a week of dieting, it will take you will get the same output from 4 weeks, if that makes sense to you, because you're only in a slightly, like, little bit of a deficit. But that's okay, because the goal was to kickstart the metabolism. The goal was to drive gym floor performance while still being in a very small deficit. This is something I've ran for, and I'll show you which clients we did this exact methodology on. We did it for this guy, absolutely, this guy, of course, this guy, and this guy. We did this exact model for them. They needed to build some muscle along the way. And you can see from this was 16 weeks. I mean, tried to convince me otherwise, and he didn't at least build some muscle. I mean, I think it's pretty fucking obvious. Don't get me wrong. Let me be very, very clear and manage your expectations. You look bigger when you're leaner. And that also goes on to the point of why you wouldn't bulk first, because you will look bigger when you're leaner. But also, we can see he did build some muscle. So from that point, going to the actual data in this analogy example, you're looking at and just for quick context, his RMR would be 1,700 calories. Lean mass, by the way, 61.5. And his activity, now this would depend how active you personally are within a given day. The average person is probably sat where you're going to times the multiplier by 155. If you're working construction, the military, or your job's just super fucking active, times your RMR by 175. That'll give you an accurate reading towards your maintenance. And likewise, if you're just pretty desk bound, don't move around so much, times it by 135, because your activity is just not that high. So his maintenance is 2.6. From there, you want to go in a roundabout, no more than a 200 calorie deficit, as this guy's done here, 206. And you're going to sit at that. Now, this is plenty of food. You will not notice that much of a difference in 200 calories. That's like fucking 2 bananas. It's nothing. So from there, your protein target's never really going to change. You're going to take your lean mass. That's why we want to know your lean mass, times it by 2.4. That's your protein target. When you are 18% body fat, the rule of thumb of 1 gram per pound of body weight will actually hold weight. If you're 30, it doesn't hold weight because you're just so fucking fat. It's like you don't need that much protein. But in this instance, you do. Fat's set to 20%, and the rest is filled with carbs. So you can see this guy's going to have 338 grams of carbs. That's a good amount of carbs. You can train fucking hard with that amount of carbs running through your veins, with that amount of glycogen sat within your muscle. So you'll be okay at that amount of food, 100%. And you're going to sit and you're going to train fucking hard at that point. Now, let's just quickly address, what sort of training should you do? The question I would ask is, how often can you train? The reason I ask you this question is you need to make sure you're stimulating the upper body muscle groups twice per week. So whatever answer you tell me, there's always a way you can still train it. If it's a 3-day split, you're going to do full body. That way you will always be able to stimulate the muscle on 3 separate days. Frequency, tick. Is volume going to be there? Probably not, because you can only train 3 days and you're only going to be able to train for like an hour or so. Frequency will be there, which means we've got one other factor, which is fucking intensity. If you can only train 3 times a week, you better bet you're training fucking hard enough to give that muscle a reason to grow. If you can train 4 times a week, perfect. This is going to allow us for a great amount of volume. Full body push, so everything on the front of the body. Full body pull, everything on the back of the body. And you would do this times 2. 2 days on, 1 day off, 2 days on, 2 days off, job done. The main and the split I put, honestly, all clients on, and I run for myself, and the one I find to build the greatest aesthetic upper body is push, pull, legs, rest, chest and back, arms and delts. Because I find men will look better with bigger arms and shoulders. It'll give them the wider look. And also with better arms, you just look bigger. Like it's the one muscle group that if someone's got a big set of arms, like this guy's jacked. And it's just the reality. So give it its own fucking day. And why you could split it up across the others, but let's be honest. You're going to do weighted tricep dips. Probably one of the greatest exercises in order to add density, thickness to your triceps. Why? Because it's so stable and loadable. You can strap a lot of weight to you. When you're going to be most effective? After you've done four exercises on your push, you've done a pec deck, you've done an incline press, a flat press, and you've done a shoulder press. Now you're going to do dips. Versus I tell you to do it exercise 1 on arms and delts. Which one are you going to be able to lift more load through? More load, more stimulus, more growth. Exactly. So you're going to want to put it on its own day, and that's why I give it its own day. So that's what you're going to do for your training, with your main aim to hit the muscle group twice per week, plenty of volume, and of course, every session, every time you step on that gym floor, you beat what you did the session before. Either reps, when you meet the upper tier of the reps, you add load. If you struggle to beat the 2, add another second of time under tension because you're lifting slowly with good tempo, and that will accumulate as follows. So at this point, we know you're training. We've set up your calories for the initial phase, and we're going to go on to what phase 2 would look like and when do we actually start to utilize cardio. You don't need to utilize cardio for the first phase because you're just going to do, I didn't put steps on there, but as a rule of thumb, you're going to do 10,000 steps each day as well. So from there, you're going to rinse this out for 6 to 8 weeks, depending on your rough starting point. For this guy, we actually pushed for 8 before we did this. But for a lot of these other guys, the phase was a lot shorter. So this guy was like 6 weeks and then 6 weeks into the next phase. Now, the next phase is the more aggressive diet phase, where we're looking to actually take you from that point to skinless lean. And when you're starting at this point to get really lean, you want to be looking around 8%. So in our example, our guy's lean mass would be 61.5. At 8%, this guy's going to basically need to drop best part of 10 kilos, coming down to 66.5. And again, don't be married to the scale weight. Going back to our results, there's about 5 kilo difference between these two photos, as in heavier 5 kilos in this than he is here. Now, why is that? Well, sure, you will have built muscle, but you will not be able to build muscle quicker than you can drop body fat. You can drop 1% of body fat. That's like 1% of your total scale weight per week. You cannot put that on in terms of natural muscle building. It's just the way it works. You just can't put it on as fast as you can lose body fat. So that's why you will always be lighter on the scale, but you will look significantly better. Let's understand that. Okay, so from there, we know you're now into the second phase, which is where you're going to be in basically a dietary cut. You're going to be cutting down. Now, you originally started at a 200 calorie deficit. From there, in order to see the 1% drop per week, I would actually be looking to increase through cardio before I start to take from food. Remember our analogy. Carbs and food itself will drive gym floor performance, which will build and retain tissue, which will essentially make you look better at the end. So let's start to add cardio. What type of cardio are we doing? Something that is non-impact. It doesn't accumulate fatigue and it doesn't spike the appetite too high. For this, as boring as it may be, you're going to have to use something that is a CV machine in the gym. Bike, incline treadmill, or a cross trainer / elliptical. Start with 20 minutes daily. Again, that's like 140 per week. You could just accumulate that however you wanted to. I would do daily, but like if let's say you have 2 rest days, so you want to stack it all on the rest days, fine, do that. Do whatever you need to, just get it done. And then from there, always look to progress the cardio 20 minutes to 30 minutes to 40 minutes, and you're making that change relative to what did the scale weight do. If the scale weight dropped and you got leaner and you dropped the 1%, don't touch anything. Rinse that out for another week. When it starts to mellow out again, add some more cardio. And I'd always keep food high. Keep it as high as you can. Now, don't get me wrong. You may get to the point you need to just pull from food. You haven't got any more time to allocate towards... let's say you're on 30 minutes, you ideally need to push to 40, but this week at work is just fucking mad busy. And to do like 40 minutes a day is just like, it's going to be tough. So then, okay, pull from food. And honestly, if you start at 20% for fats, you can honestly take from some fats, and it will not affect the diet so much because fats come at 9 calories per gram. Therefore, if you take from fats, you're going to get a good drop in calories with not a lot of volume taken out the diet. And as you diet down, volume is everything. So fibrous meals, plenty of fruit, plenty of veg, oats, white potato, generally quite filling. So take from your nut butters, take from your dark chocolate in order to bring the dietary calories down. And you're just going to rinse that out until you actually hit the leanness level of 8% body fat, 8 to 10% body fat, where you're just going to look, you'll know if you're at that point. To be honest, I'm saying percentages. If you look with visible, clean-cut abs and you're fucking happy, brilliant. You've hit the goal. You've done what's known as a body recomposition in roughly 12 weeks. And at this point, you'll be pretty fucking happy. If you're just about to go on holiday, you'll be fucking happy. Now, one thing I will warn you is you may feel like you're skinnier at this point. And the way you get around that, if you're just about to go on holiday, is you run what's known as a high-carb day. Basically, take your scale weight and times it by 7, that's the amount of carbohydrates you need in a given day to fill your glycogen stores back up. Once you fill your glycogen stores back up, you will feel and look very, very full because we've depleted them throughout the last 6 weeks. At the high day, you'll be back to feeling like superhuman. Along with being lean, you will look like fucking superhuman, ready for your holiday or ready for whatever it is that's about to come. Now, at this point, looking into the future for yourself, when you finish, you need to reverse out the diet. Don't just fucking start eating whatever the fuck you want or you'll undo the progress. The way you got down to it was by adding cardio or decreasing from food. You need to do the opposite when coming out. I would keep cardio a bit higher and I'd keep adding 200 calories until I hit my maintenance target, and I would also slowly bring cardio down to a healthy point. Never take cardio completely out. Like even in peak off season for me right now, 60 minutes per week is an absolute minimum. So for you, you're going to want to do the same. Once you've reversed back out, you're now in the prime position. You can go into a very, very productive gaining phase, which is what a lot of these guys are doing now. This result, I don't have the initial recomp photo. This is like a year's worth of work where we like dieted him down, done the recomp, and then built back up over a year, and then done a mini cut, and now he looks fucking really cool. So you're then going to go into the gaining phase, and of course, the main aim there is to add tissue. Now, at this point, you're lean and responsive to the way your body would utilize food, much more lean and responsive than you were in this photo here, because your body's not used to storing its body fat. Your body's used to using that fuel for gym floor performance. So as soon as you start adding more food, it's going to drive performance in the gym and allow you to build more tissue. So that's why we do that. And you're going to be in a prime position to go into a nice, long, juicy gaining phase before you do a little mini cut. And at that point, a year's worth of work, you look like a fucking superhuman. So honestly, I hope you found this video of value. If you did, subscribe. If you want to work with me, you want me to do this for you, we can do. There'll be links in the description. You could book a call and we'll go from there. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.